Hello, welcome back to today's session on creating abundant energy naturally. And I am Dr. Leanne McLaughlin. I am a naturopathic doctor, really here working to empower people to improve their health, overcome the, tiredness, fatigue, just those health limits that have gotten in the way, and bringing on experts who have, embodied this within themselves is usually how I see, the path that they've followed. And I believe today is going to be very similar in that. And let's jump right in. So, working through pain, discomfort, creating energy, using some natural remedies, using kind of the nature around us, different theories, different idea. Today, we're going to focus a little bit on kind of that creative sense. We're going to look at some light therapy and all this tying in with, frequency and maybe what that means with creating more energy. So I would love for you to introduce yourself, Leanne. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you for having me. And my name is Leanne Venier, and I guess I'm known most widely as the pioneer in the science of light therapy, validating the science of light therapy for the masses and the medical community by connecting color, light, teaching people about the importance of getting sunshine, connecting the science, the electromagnetic spectrum, with the hard research that's been done both recently and hundreds of years ago in the medical realm. And so bridging the gap between Western medicine and Eastern medicine, and teaching people about the importance of how color and light actually elicit these healing effects in our bodies, and also the quantum energy medicine component of healing, together with nature, basically getting out the sunshine, getting reconnected with nature. And so yeah, that's what I've been teaching about globally for about the past 20 years. My background, I used to be a mechanical engineer. I used to design submarines for Lockheed. I did not find that particularly fulfilling, so I moved to Italy for 7 years. I studied all kinds of alternative healing modalities, came back to the States, became an Eastern medicine physician, acupuncture, Zen, Shiatsu, 5 elements, and had a healing practice working with cancer patients. Then, and I was integrating all of these other studies that I'd been accumulating and becoming very knowledgeable in, plus connecting the dots between all these disparate healing modalities. And then I was feeling depleted myself because I was working so much, taking care of my patients, not putting on my own oxygen mask, as I call it, and getting drained and depleted. So I ended up signing up for a beginner painting class. So I took a beginner painting class just as a creative outlet and a flow outlet. And that beginner painting class is what ended up catapulting the teaching that I'm doing now, because I started creating paintings in flow state as a beginner painter, and I was creating paintings that were getting so much global and international attention, winning awards, and without me trying to do any of that. People were finding me, and it was all very organic the way that it came about. I was getting international recognition, invited to international exhibitions, and then when people would see my paintings, they would have very strong responses to colors in the paintings. And they would say things like, I can't stop staring at your red paintings or your blue paintings, or whatever color they happen to be drawn to. So I would tell them, well, if you're really drawn to that particular color, it might mean that you might have this going on in your body and this going on in your life. And they would say, yes, that's exactly what's going on in my body and my life. How do you know that? And I would tell them, because I can tell what is out of balance in your physical body, energy body, and psyche based on the color frequencies that you are craving. So the colors that you're particularly drawn to, that tells me what is out of balance, and the colors that you're repelled by, that also tells me what is out of balance. So anyway, that started conversations where people wanted to know more. Finally, after 3 years of pestering, I put some of the information on my website. once I did that, I thought I was done. Like, okay, stop bugging me with this. But it actually, that just then opened up a whole can of worms, because now it's out there on the internet. And then I was getting bombarded with invitations to come and speak at major medical universities, major medical international conferences like Mensa, South by Southwest Interactive. Anyway, so that's where all of this started. So I was teaching about the science behind the healing effects of color and light back when there was no light therapy industry to speak of. People weren't even really aware that there was such a thing. So now there are thousands of light therapy devices on the market because of my teachings, because I made it make sense for people, gave them the left brain logical understanding of how and why it works, and then the right brain experiential part with this is how you respond when you are around these particular colors and how it feels in your body, and the energy systems that each of the colors impacts, elicits, evokes change in, etc. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Beautiful projection. I like that idea of the bridge and seeing, like, hearing engineering to Eastern medicine practice to just transforming into the depletion state that you were feeling leading into this creative expression. And it is interesting, when we're needing something, it tends to come about, and then it's something we're actually really good at that we can do effortlessly. But it's not always that way. Sometimes we have to, like, have the energy to be able to do it. But then once we do it, it can also create more energy within us and give us that direction. And then people are drawn to you, which is amazing. That makes how life should be, right? Unrolling that journey without as much resistance.
Yep. It's all when you're able to tap into that flow, you're not just bringing in energy into yourself. You're basically this huge, antenna, unintentionally, but then you're putting out this energy that's going out into the world, and then people are just attracted to it and finding you. So it's there. I have hundreds of stories like that about how, like, against all odds and against all probability, people would find me buried in the sea of internet. So
it's interesting you particularly mentioned color cravings of things that we're drawn to and things that repel us. And you mentioned particularly blue and red, which are, have come apart. I feel like blue and red are very big when we talk about light nowadays. Everybody has heard of red light therapy, and it seems we hear about blue light blocking, factors in there. So those are interesting colors that you mentioned right away.
Those are the two that I think that people kind of have a very intuitive feel for. Red being stimulating, warming, uplifting, that sort of thing. Blue being calming, cooling, sedating. But that when I was teaching and bringing in the hardcore scientific research, there was way more information about red and blue. I mean, from a scientific research perspective. So when in my earliest talks, those were the two colors that I was focusing on as far as presenting the scientific data. But then I also included all the other colors, because the spectral colors that are found within the rainbow, within sunlight, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, they all have healing properties. They all have different energetic aspects, different meridian systems that they work on. And so the science part to validate what we've known for thousands of years in Eastern medicine and all these alternative healing modalities, there was more research for red and blue. Now they're starting to branch out and do research more in the other colors. But back then, and I've already, been teaching about the healing effects of the other colors, and I have devices that have those other colors way ahead of the curve, because most people are still doing the red and near infrared, and which is foundational. The red and near infrared is foundational healing energy. So it's like first chakra energy, heart element, or heart fire element, heart being the primary, blood, the color of blood and all of that. So it is foundational. It's kind of like when you build a pyramid, you want to have that strong foundation. So everybody in my community, I'm always like, you want to start with the red. You want to start building that strong foundation, and then you can move into the upper chakras after that. So I'm trying to like condense and compile a bunch of information into one conversation. But go ahead. Do you have any do you want to know more about any particular?
So it sounds like the foundation you mentioned is red, but really when we have like any kind of, if we're depleted in like our life energy or vitality, our chi, or having an imbalance in energy where we're up and down, we do need kind of support in all the different color therapies, which you kind of alluded to, but we really need to have that solid foundation, is what you're saying.
Yes, for as far as the color, well, so if you think of we need the color frequencies, but and there are all kinds of different ways of getting those colors. I mean, in your surrounding, in your clothing, as you see, I'm not choosing any color today. I'm wearing black, which is the absence of color, but I intentionally did that. But so whether you are getting color in your environment or getting color from the sun, we do need all of those healing energies. At certain times, you're going to need certain colors more in a higher percentage than others, depending on what is out of balance in your energy body system. But the color and the light component is only one. You need the healing energies that you find in nature. That's what fills up your life force energy gas tank. So that's a really important component that a lot of people are not getting because they're disconnected from nature. They're in their hermetically sealed homes and they go to the hermetically sealed vehicles, and then they get out of their hermetically sealed vehicles and they walk 20 feet and get into another hermetically sealed building. So that's where you see a lot of illness and disease, because people are not, it's not only not getting sunshine, which is extremely important, if they're not getting connected with nature, you know, having your feet on the ground, just being surrounded by a bunch of trees. Being in cities creates like a deficit in your energy body system, because it's like somebody sticking a straw in your life force energy gas tank. If you think of yourself as a vehicle, our gas, our fuel is that life force energy. We used to have an abundance of it when we were out in nature all the time, because that's literally that feeling that you get when you're out in nature, that uplifting, energizing, and also relaxing, where do you know what I'm talking about? Where you live surrounded by it, as do I. So, but the feeling that you get when you're out in nature compared to when you're in the middle of a city, even a small city, but big cities, they're just like, they're energy siphons, basically. They're sucking off your life force energy constantly. Being in, you know, pollution, being around all these toxic energies, Wi-Fi, around chaotic people. Even like if you've ever had an experience where you're talking to somebody and you get in an argument, or even just somebody that's all like stressed out and agitated, and you feel like depleted after you've been around them, or you want to be away from them because they're literally like a little energy vampire sucking your life force energy. So, but that's why people are often intuitively drawn to being out in nature, when they're feeling exhausted and depleted and they finally take a vacation. They're like, I just want to go lay on a beach somewhere, or I want to I want to be in the mountains. And they sometimes think I just want to be secluded, but really it's like, you can be secluded in your home, just close all the doors and don't invite anybody over. That's not what people are craving. They're craving that life force energy that you get from being in nature. So, and that is so important, and why so many people are so often depleted. And the sunshine component as well, getting those healing energies from sunshine. Because sunshine, I should say, is we're constantly bathed in all the color energies when we're under sunshine. So this is one of the things that I connected the dots for people a long time ago. This is, the electromagnetic spectrum. All of these, this is the visible light component of sunshine. So this is all the stuff that we're getting bathed in when we're under sunshine. But the visible light component is just this tiny percentage. But you see red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and indigo and violet. These are the colors that are always within sunlight. And when they combine together, they form white light. The only time that we tend to see the individual colors, spectral colors, is when there's a rainbow in the sky. So that's when, just like the prism effect, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, when you shine white light through a prism, it splits up. Well, if it has like white sunlight through a prism, it splits up into the 7 spectral colors. So when there's a rainbow in the sky, those water droplets that are left from after it rains, those serve as little prisms. So that's where you get the rainbow effect. Same if you take your water hose and you spray it on a sunny day and you get the little mist from the water hose, you'll see a rainbow in there as well, because those colors are within sunlight. So it's giving them an opportunity to split up into the individual spectral colors. So we're constantly getting bathed in all of those color energies when we are out under sunlight.
Beautiful. Yes, I like how you break that down because I don't often think about the things that we don't see. We don't often connect that, yes, we get sunlight and that is the full spectrum colors. And then when we see the rainbow, think of like the dream catcher, the little like the prisms that we'll see the little glass crystals and things, then we actually see the rainbows like on the walls or whatnot. And then you realize, oh, I'm getting all the colors through that. So what if, so that is the ideal, is being able to get out in nature, getting that sunshine. And if we have to bridge it and to create this, how can people get this otherwise? I know we're like moving into the creative aspect. We can also then choose the color spectrum, right? That we bring to our visual acuity or hanging it on our walls. How can people get into this if they're like, how can we create our own like color therapy?
Well, it's really easy to bring colors into your home. I always tell people don't paint your walls a certain color though, because you think you love that color right now, but in 3 months, as you start to come in balance or something else gets out of balance, you'll be like, you might hate the color that you just spent all that time painting on your walls. So you can, paint your walls a neutral color and then hang things on your walls that are going to give you the healing energies that you need and change those out. Same thing with putting things on the back of your sofa or pillows, throw pillows that can be the colors that you're craving at that time. And then swapping them out, just having covers. It's really easy to do that. I do that seasonally, depending on time of year. Because in the winter months, I want my living room area to feel warmer and more energizing. I love warming colors, but when I'm in Texas, when it's 98 degrees, I don't want to be around a bunch of warming colors. I want cooler colors. So by having a neutral palette on your walls, it's a lot easier to do that. That's for the color component. And obviously the clothes that you're wearing, the colors that you have in your home are not always going to be the colors that you like to wear on your body, because sometimes like for example, I love the color red. I don't like wearing the color red very often. I very seldom will wear the color red because it's an attention-getting color, because it does draw the eye and it is a stimulating color. So it naturally draws the eye of people and it makes you stand out more. And I'm an introvert, so I tend to like to be, a fly on the wall. Well, more or less. Sometimes I want to be more energized and outgoing, and I'll wear colors that will reflect that. But for the most part, what we wear on our bodies is a reflection of how we want to appear to the world. It's not just, well, this looks good on my skin tone. It's also how you feel wearing those colors. What you put in your home might be completely different. It's like, I love having my home environment that's like this, but when I'm out, I want to have these colors. But you can do both. I mean, you can have the best of both worlds. So, but the aspect, the healing energies, the quantum healing energies that we get from being in nature, and there are different names for it: chi, prana, ki, life force energy. These are all the same thing, that life force energy that we get from being connected with nature. The device that I created, the REDjuvenator, that I launched almost 8 years ago now, when I finally, after 10 years of pestering from people to make my own light therapy device, I'm like, because there's a lot of garbage on the market. There's a lot of products that are actually making people worse. And people were pestering me for so long. Please tell me what to buy, because I'm trying to find something. And I spent $8,000 on this thing. And it not only didn't help me, it actually made me feel worse. So finally, the universe pushed me in that direction and the stars all aligned, and I ended up launching my own product. But I also knew that there was no point in making just another light therapy device, because the light therapy component can only do so much. We do need those quantum healing energies that are found in nature, and a light therapy device will not provide that. So I made a full body quantum healing device that has light therapy as a portion of its full healing formulation, so that when you can't get out in nature, it actually does, it still replenishes, it fills up your life force energy gas tank. And we have things where people have completely healed from, stage 4 cancers, brain glioblastoma. I mean, anything and everything, inflammation, pain. You can't build muscle, your thyroid isn't working. All of the things, any illness, disease, imbalance, pain, blockage, fibromyalgia, as they call it, which basically just means you hurt everywhere and we don't know why. There are a lot of labels that Western medicine gives to people to make them feel like this is who you are and so you're stuck in this. But everything is healable and reversible when you address and treat the energy body system. In a perfect world, we would be out in nature all the time with our feet on the ground and being surrounded by beautiful nature and sunshine. Not everybody has that ability to do that other than when they're on vacation. So that allows people to fill up that life force energy gas tank and heal from anything that is blocking that free flow of energy and detoxify. Which is really important when people are getting older, physically older, there's no reason to be aging the way that people often do, because the aging effect usually comes from an accumulation of toxins that are building up over time in the body. Then the organ systems are breaking down. They're not doing the job of detoxifying. The energy body system gets blocked and depleted from emotional stress and trauma, but also from foods that we're ingesting or non-foods, or being around, like I said, toxic energies, EMF, Wi-Fi, being in polluted environments where we're breathing in unclean air, drinking unclean water. So all of those things, when our body is working properly and we're not over bombarded with too much of that, our body will clear all of that, keep it. But what happens is the system starts breaking down, the energy body system starts getting deficient, and pain starts from blockages in the energy channels, and then it's a snowballing effect. And people will often then exacerbate the problem by taking pharmaceuticals, drugs, which are extremely toxic, and they create more problems. They create more toxicity in the body, they create more energy blockages, and then you have a rapidly downward spiraling, getting worse and worse, where you need more drugs to manage the problems created from the first one. And so once people get into that loop, it's like the best way to start healing is you stop putting what I call the sand in the gas tank. You stop putting the toxins in. You clean up your diet. That's where a lot of people, they start first. They clean up their diet, and they stop taking the drugs and pharmaceuticals, and then they start feeling better, but they often plateau because they haven't addressed the energy body system. So you have to address the energy body system. You have to fill up the life force energy gas tank. You have to open up blockages in the energy channels, the meridians, where that life force energy is distributed through our bodies. So when you do all of that, and then the energies are getting to the body parts and the organs that need them in the first place, and then everything starts healing. So, and you can heal not only the energy body system and the energy meridians, but also anywhere in the body that there's already been physical tissue damage. So somebody has torn tendons, or they have arthritis and they're, inflammation through their whole body. All of that is healable and reversible, just like, cancers and everything. Everything is healable and reversible. Western medicine wants you to believe that this is who you are now, and you have to take this pill for the rest of your life, because it's a profit-driven system that is a sickness management system, not a wellness or healing system. Did I answer the question? I think I did.
Yes, absolutely. So I love putting it together in that whole picture. It very much is so on the philosophy of how we look at it. And if you have this belief and that we know that the body has the innate ability to heal. However, sometimes we are at the state, maybe we're already on pharmaceuticals or down this road, or have these ailments, these injuries that are really creating significant drainages on the energy body as well as the physical body. And we're starting to do nutrition, we're starting to go to maybe physical therapy or whatnot, and you can generally feel a little better. And then there's that plateau you mentioned, and then that's where we can integrate in doesn't only have to be at that point, but oftentimes this might be the missing piece that people are like, I don't know, I'm doing everything. Like I'm eating well, I'm sleeping better, I'm doing X, Y, Z. I've tried everything and nothing helps. And then you integrate in some of these bioenergetic or, kind of light type of therapies that look
Mhm.
at the body as an information system and how to give the body the ability to then overcome, to detoxify. And I have found that sometimes, with some devices, if you're too depleted, it won't work. It's like you need to have a certain amount of energy, but then there's others that are just going to give it direct energy. And then
Yeah,
sometimes, well, most of the time, it's working together with as we clean up our diet and we're feeding our body healthy
mhm.
foods that are not filled with all the other stuff, that we don't have the chemicals and pesticides, and it's
Exactly.
fresh, organic, local when possible. It just creates that whole shift and taking the burden off of, like, instead of just fire hose all this stuff into us, now we have maybe a trickle, so we can start working backwards to
Yeah,
clear all the years of exposures. But this
yeah,
is such a big factor in making it
yeah.
easier on us.
Yes, and it like you said, it is you're working at on multiple levels at the same time, and you have to do that. But a lot of times the emphasis is on the chemistry, or people are like, oh, I should take magnesium because I can't go to the bathroom, or like whatever it is that they're trying to treat and medicate a certain symptom, even if they're taking supplements, they're not they're still trying to control the symptom instead of healing the root of the symptom, why that symptom is there in the first place. So if you have digestive issues, or you feel bloated, or you have a hard time losing weight, or you're having food intolerances, if you're eating real food, because a lot of times people are so toxically overloaded, even when they're eating real food, it's like, I can't eat these things because they make me feel terrible. That's your spleen stomach energy system. So um, responsible for not only assimilating nutrients from the food, but also transforming fluids. But it's also responsible for cognitive function. So when people have brain fog, or they can't remember things, or they can't focus, concentrate, all of that is the spleen stomach energy system that ties in with digestion and assimilation of nutrients. So when you have a lot of toxins that are circulating in the body, and if you have a combination of toxicity in the liver gallbladder energy system, so that's not detoxing, and those two systems very, very often go out of balance hand in hand. One will start and it will not immediately, sometimes it will take a few years to really affect the other one, but they pretty much will always end up going out of balance. So then the body isn't detoxifying, and then you get an accumulation of toxic sludge building up, and then so you're not able to take in the nutrients from the foods that you're eating. You're not able to transform fluids. You get fluid building up in the body, and heat from the liver gallbladder energy system, kind of like an engine revving, vroom, 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 like that. And then it's like putting a big pot of soup on the stove and then cooking it at a low temperature all day long. And at the end of the day, you get all that sludge. It just turned into goop. That's what ends up turning into cellulite in the body for women, or a beer belly for men. That's where men tend to hold their toxic sludge in the abdomen region, and women will start, hips, buttocks, and then the abdomen, or whatever, wherever it starts for different individuals, go to the back of the arms. And that's not something that you clear by going on a diet. It's not a calorie, it's toxic sludge, and your body's trying to put it somewhere that it's safe. So that requires detoxifying and then focusing on healing the spleen stomach energy system, putting energy back into that system, and getting toxins out of the physical body and the energy body. And when you do that, everything starts clearing and healing. So, and you can address the symptoms directly. But a lot of times people are like, I need to go on a diet, I need to do this kind of diet, or whatever diet whatever the latest fad is. And then they're like, oh, I lost some weight, but then it came back and I gained even more weight, because they're not addressing the root of the problem. So I forget what the original question
Yes,
was.
agreed. Yeah, so just working on when it becomes applicable to integrating, and really it's something too that, as we talked earlier, just it supports with sleep, resetting circadian rhythms, like when we have the proper light therapy, and kind of like your rejuvenator, that you have, food poisoning, like anything that comes at us, and every time we heal something, we're still not perfect because it's kind of like that analogy of like if you go drive in your car or your cell phone battery, like we are always using energy. So we always then need to replenish that energy to maintain where we're at.
Mhm.
However, as the more we clear that baseline, then we start from a new level of foundation of well-being so we can continue like building up that pattern over time.
Yep.
So if
Yeah, and
we're
it
talking with
is
somebody,
repatterning. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, no, for I think you're saying like, yeah, replenishing and
Mm-hmm.
just rebuilding your foundation, you start from a different level. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're at this place where we just have tired, like going through a lot of things, feeling overwhelmed, where do you recommend people start?
Well, if they have the ability to go out in nature, that's huge. I mean, that can be so restorative as it is. That, obviously if people have a rejuvenator, then that literally fills up your life force energy gas tank. So that's a very common thing within the first few days. People are like, I can't, I get asked all the time, is it normal to feel addicted to my rejuvenator? Because when you're so depleted, it's just like, like I've been in the desert for 3 months and somebody just offered me a big bucket of, nice, fresh, clear water. And I'm like, just want to drink and drink and drink. So, but for things that can be done on a daily basis, also, if you don't have a rejuvenator, but going out, being surrounded by the healing energies in nature is just so important. And going out also, and I tell people, it's like if you have a place where you can go and be in nature, be surrounded by nature, go and just be quiet, like walk in nature. Don't like go with a friend to be yammering the whole time. Be able to like actually go, because then you get the multiple benefit of the meditative aspect of being surrounded by those healing energies, but also getting into that connected state. So when you're connected with, universal consciousness, whatever name you want to call it, we're tapped in, that then we get these downloads, we get these information about things where we're feeling stuck in our lives. But if you're out there and you're on your phone, or you're listening to music or whatever, the best thing is to go and like allow yourself to reconnect with those natures. And sometimes people were very addicted to these things. It's like leave your phone, in your car, or like have it with you, but leave it turned off just for safety's sake. But if you need to have don't get lost if you're deep in the forest. but anyway, being disconnected from modern technology and just having time to go inwards, you literally can get into flow state. Just doing that, being surrounded by the healing energies in nature, and then, allowing yourself to go inwards. And then that is creating more energy. That's relieving those blockages. The more you can get into flow state, that's our optimal state, being in flow and being in, what other names for it, like the zone. That's really our optimal state of being interconnected with these healing energies and with the universal consciousness. And you can get to a point where even when you're in the middle of a city, you can still be tapped in. So it's like training a muscle. But when people are depleted and exhausted, you have to start somewhere, and you start with baby steps and doing the things that we know are going to be helpful, and disconnecting from, our digital things, at least for a while, and being surrounded in nature. That's probably the easiest and one of the most impactful things that we can do for ourselves. That's doesn't cost a single dime, other than, like getting to the place where you need to be, I guess. um, um, though that, and yeah, bringing that's probably the number one thing that I would say for people that, and if they don't have a rejuvenator. But even so, even when people have rejuvenators, because I live, I'm in the country, I live on my ranch. I do rejuvenator treatments probably almost every night because of that. Because even though I'm like super healthy, I healed all the problems that I had in my body for many, many years, including a non-functioning liver. I had toxic overload in my body for so many years from early childhood, and healed all of that. And now I have so much energy. I have pain nowhere in my body. Everything is super healthy. But even so, I love doing rejuvenator treatments almost every night. There are some nights where I'll start watching streaming video and then I fall asleep before I can even do a treatment. But But for the most part, because we are like our cell phones, even being surrounded in nature, we're using that energy. So this way, it just like my energies never get depleted. It's just my tank is always topped off. So that's, where you do things that are constantly filling up that life force energy, including, eating real food and things like that. The more garbage that we put into our systems, the harder it is to keep that, life force energy gas tank topped off. Because if we're eating garbage food, obviously that's bogging down the system anyway, but it's depleting that life force energy because your body's like, this is like plastic. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. So anything, being in a chaotic environment all the time, living in a place with, mold, you're breathing that in all the time. Even air conditioning ducts that haven't been cleaned out, things. If you are in your home, you need to make sure that your home environment is clean, not using toxic chemicals as cleaning agents, which is like a lot of times people are, using these toxic things. And I'm like, I want my house to be so clean. It's like, well, you're actually contaminating it because you're using toxic chemicals or burning paraffin candles that then you're breathing in that stuff, and it's polluting everything that goes into your lungs then goes into your bloodstream. Putting lotions on your body that are full of toxins and chemicals and things like that, and artificial perfumes, all of that goes into your body. So it's not just the stuff that we eat and put through our mouth. It's all these different ways of getting into our body. And also watching things like the news that's polluting our brains and our minds, that's contaminating our minds. And everything that you consume that you're watching, I mean, we have to be really careful. It's the same thing for children. You have to be really careful what you're consuming and what you're watching and listening to, because that literally, anything that's creating stress, because, and so much news is all, to get you and keep you in that fight or flight mode. It's putting you in that stress state. So you're constantly, again, depleting that life force energy. Anytime you feel stressed or agitated, that's siphoning off that life force energy. And that's where, especially first thing in the morning or before you go to bed, don't contaminate your psyche with any of that sort of stuff. There's just so many things that are actually really simple and easy to do. And a lot of it is not doing things. It's not about doing or adding more stuff in. It's about getting the stuff out and stop putting it in, whether it's, in the psyche, eating non-foods, putting toxic things on our bodies, breathing toxic things in our homes. It's not about put more stuff into the system, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I need to take this supplement, I need to take these pills, I need to put stuff. It's way, way more often stop putting the garbage in and then give your body a chance to recover and start healing.
Yes, agreed. So I like that. Number one, you mentioned, getting out in nature is something everybody can do in some aspect. And, figuring out how to modify, whether it's like clothing or a tire change, or, finding a means to get into a space that is like a cleaner, more natural space, sunshine. The second one you mentioned is if they have like the REDjuvenator, like you have doing. Third is just all the daily things that we can use that fill up our tank. And I would say moment to moment, we generally know if something, like maybe it's the people we're around or the things that we're using, that will start to feel more tired as we begin to connect and understand and actually pay attention to our bodies. They will tell us as we're going through, but then we also know, like you said, we bring in, or like doing more is not always better. Like doing the cleaning products and things like that is, it's easier just to go back to simple things like, vinegar and water, baking soda and essential oils, and the things that actually do also help build us up. So everything we're doing, the more that all of those things build us up, that just makes us even stronger. And we feel that energy exchange as we are investing for ourselves, our kids, our grandkids. It creates that shift, and you mentioned like the emotion, the relationship aspect. Maybe for some people it's been like where they live. And I've heard this a few times. They're like, it just every day feels like not where they want to be, and they make this move somewhere and it's like, they come to life, and
Yeah.
like things, the ailments like ease out. And so it is those moment to moment things. And if we wrap it back around into those quiet spaces and flow state, some people have a really hard time sitting and doing the meditation, whereas doing, outside. And for therapeutic wise, a lot of people, kind of like you found, it directed you into, color therapy through artwork. And
Mhm.
certain colors will come through. And so that, I feel like, is another really simple one that anybody can do, is to get some
Mhm.
paints or whatever the choice of avenue might be, and to sit in that silence with no phones or anything else, and just be in a space and see what comes out of you. And then you can
Yeah.
also reflect upon that.
Yeah, and I think I for years and I'm going to bring them back, taught a creative flow, color and creative flow workshop. And rather than, because I was a painter, but painting using liquid paint or things that can easily become mud is a okay, harder direction to go. Maybe the cows. Um, the Liberty, stop. She's she's in guard
Mine
dog mode.
actually
There's
can't even
somebody
hear
back
it.
there. Okay, you can't. Okay, let's just go over it. So yeah, the easier things are colored, oil pastels, things like that that are give really vibrant colors that you can blend together, but they're not going to instantly turn into mud. So where colored pencils, or even, I mean, crayons, although crayons you don't get that such a vibrant color, but um those are really good tools that are very inexpensive, and just doodling or drawing, and you can get those color energies through your eyes, and then the kinesthetic aspect of doing the drawing. And it can be so meditating. These coloring books that came out a handful of years ago are also really good, because you're not having to feel the pressure of like, what am I going to draw? Just take colors and fill in the drawings that are already there. That can be really, really helpful. And doing that, if you're out in nature, is even better, but you can be doing it in your home, and making the time also to have some kind of creative outlet, whatever it is. And for some people, it's gardening. For other people, it might be sewing. For some people, it's, drawing or painting or creating ceramics, or um, these are all things that are really easy to access. And some of them, like take a class, do something where it's a creative outlet, learn something new. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. And making scheduling in the time is also really important, because a lot of times people do make schedule time. I need to go get my oil change. I need to go to the dentist. I need to do all these other things that I don't enjoy doing, but they schedule those in, and then they don't schedule down quiet meditative time for themselves. Even people when they have kids, it's like, you have to schedule time for yourself, because we have to put our own oxygen mask on first in order to be able to help we love and care about. So when the plane is going down, it's like they put the oxygen mask on your first. My cows must be cows.
Yes, completely agreed. And it is that foundation, because it could be taking care of kids, or I know a lot of times we're in these split generations where we're also taking care of like maybe our parents or somebody who's older than us, and having to really bridge this and rejuvenate. And I say the self-care, like at any age and stage, is essential, like teaching kids how to do it and embodying it ourselves, and creating and scheduling in that time. And I'll say this is one I'm not always good at, but
Yeah.
I do, like, I always, like, I'll be in moments, I'll be like, okay, what can I just sit, 5 minutes, or what can I get just to do a little bit of a mini reset? And like you mentioned, those coloring books too, they have that are like really beautiful, intricate patterns. You color them in, and they like really bring to life this thing that it was you just adding more color to the page. And those ones too feel more comfortable for me than like a blank piece of paper. But I think it's probably a process over time as well. And you mentioned at the very beginning of bridging this over of our right brain, left brain, and you have really mastered the balance of both through like your path and trajectory through. So the more we can cross over and utilize, our creative brain, it takes almost like the pressure off of our brain that tells us like our scheduling and all of the like, the facts and things like that. It really is a balance that then brings peace to the body, the nervous system, the vagus nerve, that we feel more balanced and centered throughout our days too.
Yeah, it's that same thing that you were talking about earlier about the layering effect and everything when you're doing any of these activities, it's helping all of these multiple layers. So you're healing from within and from without, and it's kind of an accumulation in the positive sense. So snowballing in the positive sense. I don't know what's going on with my dogs. Look,
No worries at all. Yeah. I know I hear mine outside, like barking at
yeah,
the pigs too, or maybe the cat's out there now, or
they're
but it
they're
is, so I really hope that out of this, as people realize how much, like just our day to day, the simple things of seeing and like recognizing, noticing. I'm looking outside. We have today is like actually a beautiful blue sky with big white puffy clouds. We're in the change of fall already. So I've got the red, orange, and yellow leaves, the green evergreens, the white on the snow-peaked mountains already coming back. And so I was driving today and thinking of our conversation we're gonna have, and I'm like, these are the moments where I like turned off the radio and I have to be driving, but just taking it all in and letting my body, assimilate those the frequencies and just bring uplifting of what nature has created for us to appreciate when we have those moments of pause. And it can be just those little moments of letting go of distraction that's always there and really just being in that present moment. So I hope that everybody on here comes back to that of just connecting with nature more, noticing the things and appreciating the beauty around us. If possible, we'll have your information on here for getting the REDjuvenator into people's hands to be able to try. And then also just that the daily things that we choosing everything that, as you mentioned, kind of filling up our life force and increasing that creative time, scheduling it in to do whatever that might be for kind of what you said, like that creative expression time. So
yeah.
I hope that you all gleaned a few just gems out of this, things that you can implement today. And I hope to see you on the next session. Thank you so much for joining me today, Leanne.